Hey everyone, welcome back. We are here with the Daring to Succeed podcast or the Uncommon Career podcast. And Julianna and I are going to talk you through what it feels like to be stuck to make sure you are not in that space. And if you are, we're going to walk you all the way through getting unstuck. So whether you're trying to, land a new position, get a promotion, or just figure out what in the heck is going on at work or in life, if you feel stuck in any part of your day, any part of your week, this is the episode for you. So, Julianna, I'd love to kind of jump in right at the deep end. What does it feel like when we are just stuck, when we're in the mud?
Yeah, I am so excited to get into this because especially with like our careers and everything we see on LinkedIn and Medium and everything, everybody keeps talking about the feeling of being stuck, but I don't think we ever actually go into like what it looks like. I think a lot of the times it's feeling like you're on the hamster wheel and no matter what you do, the result is the same. So you'll try a different framework, you'll talk to all the people, you'll do all the research, you'll learn all the things, but doesn't matter how much of that you do, you still aren't getting to the goal that you want. And I think from a practical standpoint, like some of the examples would be when you feel like you're procrastinating, you know that you're procrastinating, you know the thing you need to do, you know it's important, but you just aren't doing it. And it doesn't matter how much you like make promises to yourself to do it or put it on your calendar. There's always that little excuse of, oh, that can wait, or something else important came up, so I had to move it.
Oh, absolutely. So it's kind of like you have your foot on the gas trying to go, 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 but you're not making any progress because you simultaneously have the brake on. So at the same time, it's like you're trying to go, you're kind of, I guess you might even say your outer self is trying to go, your hands are trying to move, but internally, there's something that's stopping you. So you're making these kind of subconscious decisions to not make progress because you feel something's off. Meanwhile, you're trying to make progress on the outside. So you can become really tired even after you rested because you kind of have this bucket of energy and you have a leak in that bucket. So not only can you not make progress, you're also ending up really tired. So it feels like, how is it that I'm spinning my wheels? I'm super tired, and yet I'm not making any progress.
Totally. And as you're saying that, all I can picture is a car stuck in the mud and your foot's on the gas pedal and it just keeps spinning and spinning and you can't get anywhere.
Oh, yeah. If you're busy all day long and you get to the end of your day, and though you have been busy all day long, you feel like you're guilty. And one of my clients has said, like, I feel like I'm failing in all parts of my life, but yet I'm so tired at the end of the day. And I'm like, that there's something in the background that we are not aware of or are not addressing. And that's what's number one, draining you, but it's also kind of a little bit of that self-sabotage. We don't even realize it's happening. And that's where that guilt comes from, because somewhere in the back of your mind, you know there's something you need to be doing and you're not actually addressing it.
Yeah, and I've had people tell me that it's not necessarily like an energy drain for them, but it's like the feeling of overwhelm or feeling like their thoughts are racing and they just can't get things to stop. And they're like, can't I just have like a moment of silence in my head? And instead, they end up filling their head with more stuff because they're trying to learn
Mm,
things or research things. And then they just keep like it just snowballs.
the
And no matter
eternal
what they
learner.
do. Exactly. Not that learning's bad, but if you find yourself stuck in this loop where you're like, I'll just watch another video, I'll just take another course, I'll just read another article, but you're not actually getting to taking the action or making the decision, probably a good sign that you're in a moment of stuckness.
And this is really helpful to understand kind of what's happening, even biologically, right? When you get onto, YouTube to watch another video to learn how to tweak your resume, for example, what's happening is, well, number one, let's be honest, you're getting confusing information from different sources, but biologically what's happening, I guess chemically you could say what's happening, is that you are getting that dopamine hit. And when you get that dopamine hit, you feel like, Oh, relief. But the actual issue hasn't been addressed yet. So now you become indecisive with all the information you have. You start second guessing some of the pieces that you've edited on your resume. And here we go back to ChatGPT, which, by the way, as we learn more and work more with AI and any other models, they're for the most part self reinforcing. Try this. If you ask it, here's my resume, critique and tell me what I need to change, it'll give you 10, 15, however many points of critique. Then you'll say, fix these points in my resume. It'll fix them. So then you say, critique my resume again. You can do that forever because if you say, critique my resume, it's going to force a critique and you'll never actually be done. That's where the confusion comes from when you're working with AI. So it's very self-reinforcing. If you ask it to give you an answer, it's going to give you an answer, but you'll never actually reach perfection because you're going to keep asking it. So all that to say that AI can actually be a big stone pulling you to the bottom of the ocean in this stuck phase. So more information is not always the answer. But now there's what it feels like. But what does procrastination actually look like? Because sometimes we may not be aware of our feelings and we just may see things in action. So, Juliana, curious, like in your clients, what are some of the telltale signs that someone is stuck? What does it look like on your end as someone who's third person?
I mean, visually, it's very obvious. My clients, like when I'm on calls with them, I can see that they're unfocused, they're fidgeting, they're playing with things that they're not physically still. Like their person actually reflects their mental state of like jumping around and not being able to focus on a certain thing. And it's so fascinating because as we go through the coaching, they may not notice it, but I can actually see them going from like this ball bouncing around all in this like trapped box to a person who's sitting still, able to think and reflect, but also really comfortable in longer silences so that they can kind of take what we're talking about, think about it, integrate it, and then respond. Whereas, like when we start coaching and they've got this like ping pong ball effect going on, they're fiddling with their kettle or playing with their pet or like answering emails, not because they're being disrespectful of our time, but their mind actually can't allow them to focus.
Mhm. There's a conflict inside. There's a problem. I know I'm not
Hmm.
addressing it. I am subconsciously avoiding it. And therefore, silence, boredom, right? Solitude are working against you because they put you in a space where you kind of have to face that thing that is in the back of your mind. And this is everybody. Like we all do this. And so it's important to remember like our human side, right? So even as you're talking to me or Juliana, sometimes it feels like I'm all scatterbrained, like help me, right? But as I'm talking to, like, for example, I just had a client yesterday and we would go through, the question was, why are none of my time strategy or time management strategies working? Like she goes, I am a productivity coach. Like this is what I do. And she's like, I don't understand. I'm putting all the things in order. We went through a couple different strategies. And that's the thing. As you go into coaching, we have an arsenal of tools and strategies to work from. And so we're working through some of these tools. And it's a pattern that in coaching we can start to spot. And that pattern looks like kind of external. So if I am sitting here with you and let's say you're coaching me and we think up a couple different strategies, but every time something comes up, I start then blaming something else, right? And it's not a bad blaming. It could be like, oh, it's because I have a lot of notifications on my phone, and every time these notifications interrupt me, okay, great, let's turn those notifications on. Oh, I know, but it's also my boss. They give me too much work. Oh, okay, let's have a conversation with them. Oh, but it's also I can't delegate work because it's not going to get done well. And so notice there's a pattern going on. And so part of that is figuring out what is your pattern. And this is what we kind of get to over time. So, like you said, Juliana, looking for things like action without impact procrastination under a banner or, I guess, descriptor of I'm preparing, I'm getting things ready. Doing this now will help me be more efficient later. I need to know everything about a topic before I move forward. Or just taking things on without actually thinking about them. So if you realize that the majority of your work lately has been below your pay grade, right? You're not doing the strategic work that requires that silence, chances are there's some reason why it's easier to take a quick action than it is to get into the deep work, and we want to help you figure out what that reason is.
Yeah, and I think there was something you were talking about that kind of made me think about a more general indicator that there's a stuckness. And I call it like rationalization. So it's our brain trying to rationalize the reasons why something's not happening. And like you said, sometimes it's external. Oh, these things are happening, or these conditions, or my boss, the job market, what have you. Or it could also be relationship based or personal, where it's like, oh, I don't feel I'm ready yet, or I can't make this decision so rashly that that's not like me. Like there's all of these thoughts of rationalization that are keeping you from doing the thing that you either want to do or know you have to do.
Mhm.
And some of the work I do with my clients is figuring out, like, what is the fear behind that your brain is like jumping in to try and protect you? Because those are really strong indicators that, like, the more what I call the primitive brain is like stepping in to be like, oh, you're scared, you're anxious, you're worried, you're stressed out. It's okay, don't worry. It's everything's fine. This isn't because of you. You're amazing. And it's everything else going on in the world, so it's fine. But even though we're not consciously trying to like amp ourselves up and like give ourselves excuses to be able to continue in this stuck state, it's sort of this fight between the two sides of our brain, the one that's trying to keep us safe and the one that's like, no, we can take a little bit of risk because we know that we need to take a little bit of risk to keep moving forward.
Mm.
So it that stuckness for some people feels like that, where you're almost like having this internal battle of, I want to do this, but all these things, so I can't. So, oh well.
Yeah. And oftentimes that's a fear, like you said, fear, risk, worry, right?
Hmm.
Change, right? What will it mean? The other thing too is as we get older, learning becomes harder. So any change means we're going to have to learn some new skills. And then we're like, oh, but I'm so
Oh.
good at what I'm already doing, right? A couple of other examples here. If you are writing down goals and planning goals and having to do lists and checklists, but those checklists, either you're not excited about them or at the end of the day, they kind of go by the wayside and you're enjoying the planning more than the doing, that could be one of them. If you constantly, this is many people, including myself, are guilty of this. If you are constantly checking your inbox in the wrong moments before you go to bed, right when you wake up, not because you need to, there's nothing actually waiting for you there, but because it feels safer than thinking about what's next. It feels less uncomfortable because even though you don't know what email is going to come through, you know that those emails are going to fall within certain parameters and you can choose to respond or not. Another one is if, you decide that you're going to reorganize everything inside your home and you're looking for a sense of relief, that's another example. If you're referring to this as, oh, this is a season I'm in, you may want to figure out, is this truly the right time and place for this season? Or is this season kind of a descriptor or I don't want to say excuse, but just a name for, I just don't want to do this right now. But here's the thing, you do not have to stay stuck. Okay, it's been doom and gloom for a couple minutes as we talk about what it feels like. So we can each kind of do this self assessment and be like, am I at my most active self? Am I my most productive self? Am I having the impact in this world, in my community, at work that I want to be having? If you feel like I'm not having as much of an impact as I'm capable of, then now is the time to think about, okay, let's imagine what it would feel like to get unstuck. Because spending time on that is going to increase your motivation to get to that place. And so one of the things that, in my life and then also in my clients' lives, things that I hear is relief. That's the number one word, right? People that come in and they're like, I've been spinning my wheels and I don't know why. For me, it's like I keep looking on the job boards, right? Clients will tell me I keep tweaking my resume. But then once we get to like that clarity of, oh, I don't want to be in this industry anymore. I don't want to be in a high stress environment anymore. It's a relief saying, I feel like a wall in front of me has just been knocked down. And so for me, the first thing, I feel like they go through a process. I'd love to hear what your experience has been, Juliana, but I feel like my clients go through this process of like Kubler-Ross has a grief cycle or people go through shock and then denial and anger, right? I feel like it's similar, but like upside down. So you experience relief and then you have this like confidence, courageous moment of like, I can do this. What I thought was impossible is like so possible. I can absolutely do this. From that, then comes taking action, eventually building momentum. Then it's trusting yourself that you can make things happen with your actions. And then your whole energy and eventually even your mindset and your communications shift. Like that's what I've seen happen in clients. And I know, Juliana, you've got similar experiences. Like what have you experienced when people get unstuck?
I think for my clients, a lot of the times it's more gradual. So I see it like over the course of several weeks, and they don't necessarily have like that magical, mythical aha moment that everyone's like, oh, I just magically understand the world and how I need to do everything. But it's kind of seeing them shift over time from trying to explain what's happening to going almost straight into problem solving mode. Where, like, at the beginning of coaching, I'll see that there's a lot of focus on why things are happening the way they are and trying to like explain the situation. And when we start trying to pull different levers, explore different options, there's a bit of resistance there, even though they know they're here to do that exact work. There's still that little bit of resistance. But once I see that resistance go away and almost become self-directed, where they're coming into the sessions and being like, okay, this happened and I think I need to do this. And when the conversation shifts to, so what do you actually need coaching on? And they're like, I don't know. It's like, yes, they've made their breakthrough and they don't need to stay in coaching because they now have developed the tools they need to be able to move through those problems.
Okay, there's like something really interesting here that you just mentioned. And I think this is partly the power of coaching and why, I feel like once you start coaching, I don't know about you, Juliana, but like it becomes a bit of an addiction. But at the same time, it's this thing that you don't actually need forever. And I think that's really important that you mention that because when I first started this work, I remember having a conversation with someone, and the conversation went something like this. Well, if you're a good coach, they'll want to coach with you long term. I'm talking years. And I remember thinking, I don't know why that doesn't sound right. And it took me time. It took me a long time to like work with clients. And I would always feel like this point, usually it's like six to 1 year mark at the most, right? This point where I'm like, no, I'm becoming a crutch. And so we want to create an experience, like you said, Juliana, where we go through this process, you learn the tools that are going to help you not just in this, whether it's a new habit, whether it's breaking a behavioral pattern, whether it's becoming aware of a barrier, no matter what it is, we want to work alongside you and along the way help instill or facilitate the tools, the mental tools, the emotional tools, the even sometimes the physical tools, right? Like a planner or, how do we manage things so that it fits your life? And the beautiful thing is that after those 6 months or however long it is, like you said, Juliana, I don't I don't really know what I'm stuck on. I have figured out kind of how to recognize my patterns, how to address any issues, and how to put myself back in motion, that is just the greatest outcome of coaching. Whether it's the first time something happens, meaning you finally send that email, you finally have that conversation that seemed so impossible before, and you realize, oh my gosh, like not only can I do this, but I did this really well. And so there's that one time, but then there's building a pattern over time, which is where coaching really shines. And at the end of that, you realize, oh, now I understand how my mind works because everyone's a little bit different. Otherwise, I'd be able to send you something over email and you'd be all set to go. But everyone works a little bit different. And so to find your way of overcoming barriers, of becoming aware, overcoming them, and then making that into a mental habit, oh, so life-giving.
Yeah, and I think it's that mental habit part that is so powerful, especially when you find that right coach match for you. Because, like, we obviously both talk to a lot of people, and not everybody ends up being a client, but that's, I think, a natural part of the like coaching selection process where not everybody needs the same thing, like you said, and
Mm.
every coach provides something different. But the main thing is that you're stepping away from the coaching experience not just better, but better equipped.
Mm.
Like a lot of people talk about, like, think of it like going to the gym. And to me, it's the same as when you were told that people want to coach with you forever. It just didn't feel right. And as you were talking, I'm like, that's why. Because when you go to the gym, that becomes part of your habit, and you either keep going or you don't. And, you end up with the results that you do from not going to the gym. But
Mm.
it's a little bit different when you're actually like changing your lifestyle, changing your day to day habits, getting the same results without going into a gym.
Can you imagine? I would love that. I would absolutely love that. So I'm going to take a quick little detour because you mentioned something about kind of the coach selection process, right? Like how do you know you're working with a good coach? And I want to ask this question, but if you're listening right now and you're maybe not in the market for a coach, that's totally fine. Stay tuned because we are going to talk about kind of what getting unstuck leads to. So what you can expect out of coaching in a more practical way. But just really quickly, Juliana, can you share a little bit about, for you, who are the clients that tend to be the best fit, that get the most value out of working with you?
Yeah, it's a good question because I ask myself that all the time. And usually it's the clients who are really, really drawn to the like deep internal work, but want a layer of strategy. So they're
Mhm.
people who want to do the deep dive and figure out what's going on, but when they resurface, they want to have somebody who can work with them to strategize and figure out, okay, now that I've unblocked the thing that was keeping me from going, how do I actually implement all of this?
Mhm.
Whereas I've had some people who they're really just looking for advice or mentorship or an established framework, which isn't really what I do. There's tons of coaches who do that, and it works really well for some people. So I think that's just kind of an example of how different coaches work with like different methodologies and different things so that we can all serve everyone out there who needs support.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to know, like, am I looking for the framework and a specific step-by-step strategy, or am I looking for the kind of bespoke, trying to figure out what's going on in my mind and how can I find my best way of doing something? That's a big differentiator.
Absolutely. And what about yourself? Because I know you've got like two coaching programs now that are serving like different needs. Like, how do you decide which person is a better fit for which one?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the first program is a kind of start to finish career search program, and the clients that get the most out of the program, the clients that feel like, oh my gosh, this is such a godsend both ways, and because I enjoy really working with them too, are clients who I always think of the overachieving hidden gem. So someone who does all the things, is always a doer, but they're not getting results in their job search. And this is where I'm like, oh, that's because you're an expert in your field. But the skill of branding, the skill of communications, the skill of, oftentimes it's people who are going from individual contributor or early management roles into more strategic roles. And it's this mind shift that also shows up in how you communicate. Let me give you like one quick example. I have someone who basically is fantastic. I mean, the things they do are just amazing. They're in engineering. However, they're going into a little bit more advanced management, and the communication piece wasn't necessarily there. It was like, well, I just tell them the information. I'm really good at telling them the information. And I'm like, fantastic. Who is your audience? And we found out that for their particular work, their audience was a non-technical audience. And so we needed to learn to basically quickly translate from the technical jargon to non-technical jargon, and then move away from putting all of the responsibility of the message on the words, the information that we're communicating, and shift it more into how we're communicating it. Everything from hand gestures to like all the things, right? Too much detail for right now, but the point is, if you have a ton of value in your career, but you need help conveying that persuasively to open up opportunities, that's a lot of where I come in. And that's the job search program. We cover you beginning to end. But then the other program, thank you so much for mentioning this. It's a new program, the second one. This is pure coaching. So it's not necessarily related to the job search. It can be related to career. It can be related to almost anything. Because what's really interesting is that when you feel stuck or when you're trying to establish a new season of life, a new boundary, a new personal expectation, a new habit, it permeates all parts of your life, every part of your life. And so sometimes we say, oh, it's career coaching, but really it impacts your personal life too. And so in those situations, I'll be very honest with you, it's the people who are willing to challenge themselves and are willing to have hard conversations. Like you said, deep coaching, right, Juliana? If we are not willing to be honest, like super honest about where we are and where we want to be and how we are not there yet, it makes it very, very difficult to make any change. And so that's where I think personality is huge. So if you get on a call with me, and I'm sure it's the same with Julianna, if you get on a call with me, I'm going to tell you, have you spoken to at least one other coach? And sometimes people are like, you're the first coach I came across. And so I'm like, let's have you meet with another coach, because it's so important that you feel open, safe, confident in a conversation to be like a coworker, a peer with this person. Because sometimes we go into a coaching conversation and it feels like, in counseling, for example, the counselor is an expert of sorts, and the client, in most cases, something is wrong. And the counselor helps the client. And so there's this dynamic, right? Teacher student, right? In coaching, we are equals. I bring one expertise, you bring one expertise. You bring all your industry experience, you bring all your personal experience, you bring so many different knowledge bases. And Juliana and I bring a coaching expertise, which helps you to understand behavior, understand subconscious patterns, understand, right, like all the emotional side of things and how it can impact our work. So, long-winded answer, but it's so, so important to make a good decision when you choose who is coaching you and be clear on what you actually want out of that coaching.
Yeah, and even just thinking of like the three different programs that we offer between the two of us, we serve very different people. And I think looping it back to the conversation of stuckness, the reason you're stuck matters so much in finding the right solution, whether it be something that you can work on your own, whether it's something that you want to look for support on so that you can move more swiftly. Um, that first step is really looking at what's going on and trying to figure out what is the thing that's keeping me stuck. And like
Mhm.
Patricia said, most of us will get on a call with you to help you figure that out, expecting that you're going to look at all of your options because it is a really big decision to trust your career with somebody, and you've got to be making sure that you um, not only are comfortable with the person, but that they're actually providing you the relief that you're looking for in the way that you want, because everybody moves through their problems differently.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But when you get there, it
Oh,
is
it's so good.
amazing. I know from personal experience, I know from having clients, when you get there, it's like you know exactly what you want and what you're no longer willing to tolerate of others and of yourself. And that's a beautiful place to be. Now you're able to be consistent. And that's something that I struggled with for such a long time. When I was younger, I would constantly struggle with being consistent with my goals. I would constantly want to open another door to a new goal or look at something that's a novelty. When you know and have with certainty this clarity of what your goals are and what they're not, now you can follow through consistently. You can start to measure your progress. And it's so nice to be able to, over time, see that you're making progress toward that one goal. And one of the best, to me, one of the best pieces that comes out of feeling this freedom of not being stuck is presence, right? Whether you call it executive presence or corporate, like whatever you want to call it, it's this like calm, don't need to be in the spotlight, but also totally fine if I am. I'm okay with silence. And I'm clear enough to know when I do need to speak up. It's being really intentional about how you show up and trusting yourself along the way because you know that every part of you is in alignment with what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think just as we're starting to wrap up here, I'm just kind of reflecting back on our conversation and trying to think, like, for you, Patricia, what would be the one thing that people should think about when they're trying to figure out, like, what's their stuck point? What's their mud?
Mm, like a starting point, right?
Yeah.
Probably the first thing is to just pause. That's what I would do. I would start if any of this resonated with you, I would just if you're in your car, if you're with your coffee in the morning, if you're vacuuming or cleaning the house, like just stop for a second and like let the silence tell you, am I stuck or it's just a slower season or it's a faster season, it's a busy season. You know that answer. That's if you would just slow down and pause, you'll tell yourself almost immediately if something's up.
Yeah, that's great. And I think like how I would see it is because I'm very process driven, it's more from like if you've tried a bunch of things already to get unstuck or to like solve for the behavioral pattern or um, tried to find a way just to organize your thoughts or your actions a little bit better and nothing is working, that's probably a good indicator that you're stuck.
Mm,
And you also don't want to jump right from, oh no, I feel stuck, to immediately signing up for a coach. There is that bit of due diligence to kind of test things out on your own first to say, okay, is this something I can solve for myself? No, I've tried a whole bunch of stuff already.
mhm,
It's not working. That's where it's a good indication that maybe I need either another perspective or a little bit of support just to get me over this like hump so that I can go back to like my optimal performance.
mm. Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. You said optimal performance. I'm just going to wrap up with this last thought here, but you said optimal performance. We know when we are not working at our absolute best, and who doesn't want to be at their absolute best? So such a great question to ask. Am I at my optimal performance?
I love it. Well, I think that is plenty for today. I think we covered so much ground. Hopefully, this gave you a feeling of a little bit of hope if you're feeling stuck or if you're just in a moment of frustration and you're like, "Oh, maybe I'm not in a stuck rut right now and I can just go out there and find some things to get some real relief quickly." Um, Either way, Patricia and I always love to hear from you just to see what's going on, if there's something that we can help you with. We've got all our links in the show notes so you can find us. Any final words, Patricia?
Yeah, I just hope this gave you some good insights and reach out to us if you have any questions at all. And we'll see you on the next one.